Man, I'm at like a weird angle to the sun. Let's see if we can change that. Maybe. Hey everyone. Sorry that I have been gone for so long. So I was down at a border wall resistance camp, trying to do something that I believe in, and trying to make sure that the wall between the border of the United States and Mexico is not built, because I don't think that that's fair. And sometimes you believe in something big, and sometimes you have to do something about it. So, yeah, I'm sorry to leave you all hanging with the book, but we're going to get back to it. Eventually, we'll finish this book. So we're on chapter 18. Yeah, we're going to read today. So let's go. Chapter 18. Flowers were plentiful that spring because of the winter's heavy rains. The dunes were covered with mats of sandflowers, which are red and have tiny eyes that are sometimes pink and sometimes white. Yuccas grew tall among the rocks of the ravine. Their heads were clustered with curly globes no larger than pebbles, and the color of the sun when it rises. Lupines grew where the springs ran. From the sunny cliffs and crevices where no one would think anything could grow sprang the little red and yellow fountains of the colmal bush. Birds were plentiful too. There were many hummers, which could stand still in the air and look like bits of polished stone and have long tongues to sip honey with. There were blue jays, which were very quarrelsome birds, and black and white peckers that pecked holes in the yucca stalks and the poles of my roof, even in the whalebones of the fence. Red-winged blackbirds also came flying out of the south, and flocks of crows, and a bird with a yellow body and a scarlet head, which I had never seen before. A pair of these birds made a nest in a stunted tree near my house. It was made from strings of the yucca bush and had a small opening at the top and hung down like a pouch. The mother laid two speckled eggs which she and her mate took turns sitting on. After the eggs hatched, I put shreds of abalone under the tree, which she fed to her young. The young birds were not like their mother and father, being gray and very ugly. But anyways, I took them from the nest and put them in a small cage that I made of reeds. So later in the spring, when all the birds except the crows left the island and flew off to the north, I had these two for friends. They soon grew beautiful feathers like those of their parents, and began to make the same sound, which was reep, reep. But it was soft and clear and much sweeter than the cries of the gulls or the crows or the talk of the pelicans, which sounded like the quarreling of toothless old men. Before summer came, the cage was too small for my two birds, but instead of building a larger one, I cut the tips of their wings, one wing of each, so that they would not fly away, and let them loose in the house. By the time their wings had grown out, they had learned to take food from my hand. So a little side note there, when she says that she cut the bird's wings, it doesn't mean the actual, like the skin and stuff of the bird. It means the end parts of the feathers of the ends of the wings, because that'll make it so that the bird can't fly very high. So she's not hurting the birds. It's just the feathers, and those will grow out like it says. They would jump down from the roof and perch on my arm and beg, making their little reep, 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 reep sound. When their wings began to feather out, I cut them again. This time I let them loose in the yard, where they hopped around, hunting food, perching on Rontu, who by now had gotten used to them. The next time they feathered out, I did not trim their wings, and they never flew farther away than the ravine, and would always come back at night to sleep, and no matter how much they had eaten, they asked for food. One, because he was larger, I called Tainor. I named him after a young man I had liked, who had also been killed by the Aleuts. The other was called Lurai, which was a name I wished I had been called instead of Karana. During the time I was taming the birds, I made another skirt. This one I also made of yucca fibers, softened in water and braided into twine. I made it just like the others, with folds running lengthwise. It was open on both sides and hung to my knees. The belt I made of sealskin, which could be tied in a knot. I also made a pair of sandals from sealskin for walking over the dunes when the sun was hot, or just to be dressed up when I wore my new skirt of yucca twine. Often, I would put on the skirt and the sandals and walk along the cliffs with Ronchu. Sometimes I made a wreath of flowers and fastened it in my hair. After the Aleuts killed our men at Coral Cove, all the women of our tribe had singed their hair short as a sign of mourning. Singeing is like burning. Yeah, it's like burning. I had singed mine too with a faggot, which it's like a stick. So in this case, it's a stick that was on fire. But now it had grown long again and came to my waist. I parted it and let it fall down my back, except when I wore a wreath. Then I made braids and fastened them with a long whalebone pin. I also made a wreath for Ronchu's neck, which he did not like. Together we would walk along the cliff, looking at the sea, and though the white men's ship did not return that spring, it was a happy time. The air smelled of flowers, and birds sang everywhere. So usually in the description, I put some questions for you guys, but I thought that maybe I would just ask you the questions. I'd talk to you a little bit. So one thing that I noticed in this chapter is that there's a lot of talk about colors. And sometimes when a person writes a book, they do that on purpose, maybe to kind of bring attention to different parts of the story. So the rest of the story is about how difficult things have been for Karana. Everyone she knows died or left, and she's all by herself, and she had to figure out all by herself how to live on the island. And there was really no talk about color, maybe because she didn't have the time or the energy to pay attention, you know. But now it seems like she's kind of more comfortable and maybe a little bit more used to things, and she's starting to notice that, you know, the island is a little bit beautiful. She's feeling safer. She's able to, you know, before we had a lot of, you know, her making things that helped her to stay alive, like the bows and arrows or things for fishing or, you know, her home. But now we see her make something that's just for her. She makes a pretty outfit that she likes, and she likes to get dressed up. She says she even makes sandals just for dressing up together with her skirt, and she even puts flowers in her hair. But there's no one there to show off to. It's just because she wants to feel pretty, and she wants to feel nice, and she wants to do something for herself. But that means that she's feeling safe enough to do something like that, probably. She feels safe enough to maybe take care of another pet. So she has the 2 birds now. I mean, she's just maybe feeling like in a better place. Not like at a different, like on a different island, but, you know, in a different, like, emotional place. And I think that you can kind of start to see that when it describes so many different kinds of colors and also so many different kinds of flowers. And for the first time, we get to see the island as someplace beautiful instead of someplace a little bit scary. And we get to hear some stories from Karana that she remembers that aren't necessarily so sad. Like she talks about how, you know, she wished that she had a different name when she was a little kid. That's not the same as like, you know, the remembering back to when everyone was killed, which she, you know, she's mentioned before, or remembered, you know, oh, I remember when everyone used to be here and now no one's here. And she's remembered things like that a couple times, but now she's remembering something personal about herself. That's like the kind of thing you'd tell to a friend. So now the writer is like making us, the reader, Karana's friend. And I think it's kind of a special moment in the book. You know, she's growing up now on the island all by herself, but she's feeling okay about it, it seems like. But yeah, go ahead and leave your comments. And I'll definitely try to be reading more often. Like I said, I'm really sorry I didn't get to that, as often, but I was down, you know, trying to help out to some people who really needed it. And, but I think I'm back for the spring and the summer, so I'll go ahead and try to post more of these videos more often. I hope you're all doing really well. Oh, and I saw some of you had posted suggestions for books. I'm going to have to see what I can do as far as there's rules on, you know, for things that are published. I probably shouldn't be reading this book actually, but I did get permission. So I have some friends who are writers that I met at a writing conference, and they gave me permission to read their book. So I have a couple of books lined up that we can definitely read, and I'll check on the ones that you're leaving in the comments to see if there's any way that we can read those ones as well without them getting taken down off of YouTube. So yeah, have a good one. Bye.